I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday.
Well, Disney is about to release their new Lion King movie, Mufasa, which is a big prequel to the Lion King remake, which I never saw. I don't know if you ever saw it.
I did not see the full thing. We're talking about the quote-unquote live-action remake. Here, I'm assuming.
The 2019 film.
Yeah, with Beyonce and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I watched about 15 minutes, I think, before I was like, oof, I just can't do it.
I tapped out at the trailer. I saw the trailer. I was like, no, this doesn't look right. The characters are not emoting it at all. I will take the classic animated version and I'll just enjoy that. If someone else, I mean, obviously people did enjoy it. It is the highest grossing animated movie of all time still.
I think we both had the same problem with it. I think it's just that you tapped out earlier than I did. I win. Haha.
Also, I heard that they cut out "Be Prepared" in that movie, and that is definitely a no-go. You can't cut out the villain song.
Yeah, that I didn't even make it far enough to realize that. But the thing is that yeah, the CGI, because they're trying to do it realistically. I think we've talked about this before in a different episode, but because
actually, I believe it was when we talked about the original Lion King, because that was early 2020.
Yeah, but the problem is that when you try to do quote unquote realistic animals, which is what they were trying to do with the CGI, is animals do not emote in the same way, so their mouths don't move in the same way, and when you're doing traditional animation, you can make their mouths move in a very anthropomorphic, human way, and you can do lip matching and all that kind of stuff. And if you do that with the CGI, well, go look at the CGI Lady and the Tramp, because they did a little bit more of it in that. And it looks a little weird to do realistic CGI looking dogs, but also try to do the traditional animation mouth movements. It's just a very heretofore unknown part of the Uncanny Valley.
I will not be watching Mufasa. I will be in the other theater watching Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
At least that one kept the anthropomorphic style of the Sonic and his friends, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's CGI, but it's still the kind of traditional animation vibe. Also, Keanu Reeves.
Yes, Keanu Reeves' Shadow.
And you cannot go wrong with that.
He just loves playing edgy characters these days.
Yeah, he's really good at it. Go play Cyberpunk 2077. They've cleared almost all of the glitches, and it's maybe a little close to home right now.
But anyway, yes, Disney is releasing their Lion King prequel, Mufasa. So we decided, let's take a look at the first time Disney did a Lion King prequel, Lion King 1.5. We are returning to the direct-to-video Disney sequels. Kiki, this was a first watch for you.
Yeah, and here's the thing. We talked about this when we talked about Bedknobs and Broomsticks, about how people were leaving out the most important part about getting me to watch a movie. With Bedknobs and Broomsticks, it was Angela Lansbury fighting Nazis. If people had told me that, I would have watched that movie years before I did. And with Lion King 1.5, even though I like Timon and Pumbaa, and I knew it was a Timon and Pumbaa movie, if people had told me this was basically Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, but with Timon and Pumbaa, I would have watched this movie way earlier.
I mean, people do say the first Lion King was Hamlet, so it goes to say even Lion King 2 Simba's Pride, which we have not talked yet, does have a little bit of Romeo and Juliet into it. So keeping the theme of pseudo-Shakespearean adaptations. Even though Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead is not actually a Shakespearean play, but it is using his characters.
Yeah, I mean, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead is more Waiting for Godot, but Shakespeare parody, you know. The thing is, though, is that I need people to stop burying the lead about movies with me. Like, learn how to sell a movie to me, people. Come on.
And I'll take the hit on that because, you know, I figured you knew. I mean, there are YouTubers that I know that you watch that have talked about this stuff like this, especially Shakespearean adaptations. I figured you already knew.
Yeah, I just don't remember ever seeing anybody talk about this particular one.
The closest thing in terms of a modern pop culture reference to Lion King 1.5 would be Wicked. Much like Wicked is a prequel to The Wizard of Oz, and part 2 will be incorporating the events of Wizard of Oz into that story. That's what this is. We get a prequel showing how Timon and Pumbaa met, their backstories, and incorporating events of the original Lion King from their perspective. Earlier in the year, we talked about Cinderella 3. And I said that is probably one of the best direct-to-video Disney sequels. And I still stand by that. Lion King 1.5 is by far the best looking in terms of animation of the direct-to-video Disney sequels, the 2D animated ones anyway. And it kind of has to be because they are incorporating scenes directly from the original movie. There is a very obvious animation quality dip, but it's still very well animated.
I was really shocked at how good this movie looks.
This is way too good for a direct-to-video movie in terms of how it looks.
Yeah, this was done by Disney Toon Studios.
And they do a lot of the TV shows. They've done all of the direct-to-video movies.
Yeah, and we've talked about them before.
Goofy movie, DuckTales the movie.
Yeah, their first one was DuckTales the movie, which we have talked about. Go back and listen to that episode. Not to say that was not a well-animated movie, but, you know, that was done in 1990, I think. They finally were shut down. Disney doesn't use that studio anymore.
Yeah, it was shut down after Iger took over because he did not like the idea of the direct-to-video sequels. He wanted any potential sequel to animated movies to be theatrical. It's where we get Frozen 2. It's where we get Ralph Breaks the Internet. And yeah, Moana 2, while originally meant to be a series, was done by the feature film team, and they just modified it to be a movie.
Their last one that they did was one of the Tinkerbell movies.
Yeah, by that point they had switched to CG. That and the Cars spin-off movie Planes. This movie also has an alternate title, as in some countries this was released as Lion King 3 Hakuna Matata. I'm guessing that 1.5 probably doesn't translate into every language.
I wouldn't say that, but every language has the ability to give you fractional notation, but weirdly, it tends to come down to what you can copyright in certain countries.
Mm.
And so it might have been like some weird copyright law thing in particular countries
Mm-hmm.
that like it's easier to do with, a 3 than a fraction. I
Maybe.
don't know. But yeah.
I do want to get to Lion King 2 at some point, but prequel for prequel, that's pretty much why we're doing this.
Yeah. Also because it's December and we're trying to keep it light, and this is known as one of the best direct-to-video sequel prequels that Disney ever put out. Like you said, this and Cinderella 3 are known as probably the two best that Disney has put out to this point.
Some people will argue for Lion King 2, and I will let you, who do love Lion King 2, I will let you have that. The direct-to-video Disney sequels get a bad rap for good reason. Many of them are just cash grabs, and they don't really. A lot of them just hit the same beats as the original films, just with cheaper animation and not so good songs. So so it has its bad reputation. It has earned that bad reputation, but but there are gems in this collection that are worth watching. Like I said, Cinderella 3, Lion King 1.5, Lion King 2. I would even say Lilo and Stitch 2, which we might get to. There is a remake coming out next year.
Yeah. I am going to say that I think one of the things that makes this movie a little bit head and tails above a lot of the other ones is how many of the original cast they got back for this.
So there's the obvious one: Nathan Lane as Timon, Ernie Sabella as Pumbaa, and they never left. They were doing the Lion King Timon and Pumbaa show for Disney Afternoon, so they were still performing as those characters pretty much the entire time. They've never stopped. Yeah, we got Matthew Broderick back, who did come back for Lion King 2 about a year before this movie came out. Broderick did The Music Man for Wonderful World of Disney.
And
So,
that was awful. We might talk about that one day when we want to rag on a bad movie.
so working with Disney in a direct-to-video capacity is not new for Matthew Broderick. And as we were texting before we started coming on mic, you had mentioned that early 2000s was kind of a slump for Mr. Broderick at the time.
Yeah, this was probably one of the biggest things that he
The producers
did at
came
the
out the
time.
next year. The producers came out the next year, didn't it? I think it was 2005. We got Maura Kelly back as Nala. She doesn't have a huge part in the movie, but they were able to get her back. We got Whoopi Goldberg, Cheech Marin, and Jim Cummings as Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed. Robert Guillaume back as Rafiki. Again, his part isn't huge, but it's just as memorable in here. Few recastings, one for necessity and one for budgetary. Young Simba, which was originally played by Jonathan Taylor Thomas in the original film, recasted Matt Weinberg, voices Simba here, because it's been like 10 years since that original film, and JTT is not a kid anymore.
Yeah.
We get Edward Hibbert recasted here as Zazu, replacing Rowan Atkinson, who played him in the original film. Hibbert played Zazu in Lion King 2. So it's just another situation for Disney we couldn't get the celebrity to sign on to be the permanent voice, so we're just going to get it sound alike. Yeah.
And honestly, while I said that this was a slump in Matthew Broderick's career.
Mhm.
And that's probably why he was doing Simba in direct-to-video. This was when Rowan Atkinson was hitting it really big internationally as something other than Mr. Bean.
Johnny English, you mean? Those movies?
No, I mean, this was right about the time when he was getting lots of, not necessarily starring roles, but he was showing up in like the Richard Curtis films, Love Actually, and stuff like that. He was starting to get a lot more serious roles, which is kind of weird. He was doing a lot more theater. People knew his name and not, oh, he's that weird Mr. Bean guy. It is weird that this was right about the time that he would have a bit of an upswing in his particular thing. So it might have been that he was also a little too expensive for a
Or just plain unavailable.
or just plain unavailable, because he was doing a lot of work at the time, either on stage or on screen. Anyway,
They appear in the movie, again, since this takes place, side by side as the original film. We do see Mufasa and Scar, but they don't say anything.
same with Sarabi.
Same.
She's in the background.
Even using Jeremy Irons and James Earl Jones's voices, reusing them from the original film, probably would have ballooned the budget of this direct-to-video movie.
Yeah, I'm sure that just James Earl Jones reusing his audio would have tripled this budget easily.
And they were not going to recast.
No, you don't recast James Earl Jones.
But we do get a few new characters. We get Timon's mother, Julie Kavner, Marge Simpson. And this is Marge Simpson.
I mean, no offense to Julie Kavner, but much like some other beloved voice actors, she really only has the one voice.
But she uses it well.
Oh, no, she uses it wonderfully. Like I said, much like some other beloved voice actors, you immediately know it's her. Yeah. Because it does sound like slightly less raspy Marge Simpson.
I'm expecting her to call Timon her special little guy.
Yeah.
My Timmy.
Yeah.
And Jerry Stiller as Uncle Max. We're really pushing the Jewish coding on Timon.
Yeah, the meerkats really do get a very heavily Jewish coding on this.
Doesn't hurt that the end of the movie has them singing about reaching the promised land.
Yeah.
I'll come back to this.
Yeah.
But yeah, the movie starts with them rewatching the original Lion King, and then we zoom out to a theater, and there's Timon and Pumbaa, MST3K style, saying, Timon with a remote in his hand. So is this a movie theater or is this a television thing? Who knows?
I mean, maybe with all their Disney money, they've set up a, home movie theater.
I mean, you can connect a DVD player to a projector.
Oh, yeah. But like I said, maybe they've got like a little home theater out there just outside the Pride Lands,
Or, this is the Walt Disney Studios. I'll get back to that.
Yeah. Maybe that. You brought up the MST3K, we've got the Mystery Science Theater kind of silhouette thing going on, and the screenwriter has stated for the record that he is a fan of Mystery Science Theater and that this is a direct reference to MST3K. This was his intention, and we are not reading into this because we are fans. He was a fan. He wrote this in there.
It's not for the whole movie. Again, occasionally the movie will cut to them in the theater, but yeah, them in silhouette watching the movie is a clear reference to MST3K.
Yeah. Kids, this is what we call a framing device.
So yeah, they're watching the original Lion King, and Timon wants to skip ahead to the movie to their part. And Timon says, no, you can't do that. You got to watch the whole movie. But Timon says that they're not at the beginning of the movie. They get there, but we were there. They just don't know it yet. Well, why don't we tell them? So that is the point of this movie, is that Timon and Pumbaa were in fact at every major point in The Lion King, just off screen. Which, again, is the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead aspect of the movie here. If you, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about when we say that, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead is a play about the characters of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern from Hamlet and what they were doing during the events of Hamlet. There is a very funny scene where Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are looking upon Hamlet, doing a soliloquy, and wonder who he's talking to.
Yeah, because they can't really see the audience, even though they're off in the wings of the play. Yeah, it's pretty funny stuff.
The story proper starts with Timon's backstory in what he calls the pit of shame, far, 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 far away from Pride Rock. There's a really great song here, Dick-a-ton, gonna dick-a-ton.
Yeah, this song is a bop. Love this. This has been running through my head since watching the movie.
So yeah, the meerkats, Timon's meerkat colony digging tunnels, going underground to avoid getting eaten by the hyenas. And as I look through the movie, I've noticed that the underground tunnels are filled with hidden Mickeys.
Yeah.
Gotta love it when they make those references. And we find that Timon is kind of an outsider. He's not very good at digging. He tries to install a sunlight in the tunnel and collapses the whole thing. And then they later give him a new job as a scout. Well, if digging isn't your thing, maybe you can be a scout, look out, and report if the hyenas are coming, which leads us into our Timon's I Want song. He has an I Want song because this is kind of his story. So he sings a song called That's All I Need. And he wants his own space. You know, he doesn't want to hide. He doesn't want to dig tunnels anymore. He wants to be free from predators and all that. He just wants to be in the sun. Out there, sitting in the sun. Which, funny enough, this song was actually written by Elton John and Tim Rice. So we do get one Elton John song in this movie. This song was originally written for Lion King 1. It was originally written under the song Warthog Rhapsody, which was to tell the story of Pumbaa. And that song later got removed and replaced with Hakuna Matata. So for them to reuse the melody of this song, and Tim Rice wrote new lyrics to make this an I Want song for Timon. So it's very funny that a song that was originally written for Pumbaa now gets to be sung about Timon. Timon, he's too into his own song. He doesn't notice the hyenas are coming. And he almost gets the colony eaten by the hyenas. So he kind of decides, you know what, I don't want this life anymore. I need to find my own part. I need to find my own place in the circle of life. And goes off on his own quest because he feels he's a burden. And if you ask the colony, he probably is one. And I kind of feel bad for Timon in this one. This isn't the life he wants, but it's the life he has. We dig so we can hide, we hide so we can dig. Is that all there is to life? Though I do like that they make a nice reference to the original movie in that his mom says, look out there, Timon. Everything the light touches belongs to somebody else.
Yep.
It's a nice parallel to what the hierarchy, the monarchy of the lions versus the low class of the meerkats. And no, I don't think I'm reading too much into it, especially if you keep following the Jewish coding of the meerkats in this movie.
Yeah, I was just as we're recording this, FD Signifier, great channel, go look him up over on YouTube, or if you have Nebula, great service. We're not sponsored. I just like the product. But yeah, FD Signifier just dropped a video about movies where the villains are right. And in that video, he mentions the original Lion King movie and how the hyenas are ethnically coded in that movie. Mm-hmm. Because Timon is the only meerkat we see in the original film, of course. He talks about the way that there is, Pride Rock is kind of an apartheid state in the original film. And this movie is not like very deep, but like kind of the one sort of passing deep reference is Ma looking out and being like, look at all the light touches. That belongs to somebody else. We've got our tunnels and we have to run from the hyenas. And it's not much, but it is kind of a nod to some of the deeper issues in the first movie, which I kind of liked.
Timon runs into Rafiki and he tells him he needs to find Hakuna Matata. The idea that Hakuna Matata was given to them, I don't like. That it's not something that Timon or Pumbaa discover for themselves. But we need to get this movie going.
I'm not sure that I have such an issue with it because there is kind of the idea of like, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, And the thing is like, Timon has been very sheltered up until this point in the story. The fact that he would need that little push from this meeting with Rafiki and the meeting with Pumbaa. But the thing is that I like the fact that Timon is like, Havana tomato. It's, he's trying to remember the words and he can't because he's only heard it once.
A big enchilada. I got a lambada.
Yeah. And then Pumbaa is like, well, you'll think of it at some point. Hakuna Matata. And Pumbaa already knows what it means. Pumbaa's kind of been living that life. It's Timon that needs to learn the lesson. Because it's Timon's story, And that's kind of why I don't have a problem with it. Like, Pumbaa's already on that road.
I mean, he's already alone. They quickly go through him that, it's what we already know. He farts, and people don't like being around him because he farts a lot.
When he was a young warthog, the idea that Timon is the one that needs to learn, I'm okay with. And that's why Pumbaa is such a good match for him. Pumbaa is kind of where Timon needs to be, and Timon is Pumbaa's I don't know if you'd call it ambition, because they don't really need ambition, but I don't really have a better word for it, you know? Like, he keeps Pumbaa moving along, you know? He's the just keep swimming part of the pair.
Mm-hmm.
And Pumbaa is the Hakuna Matata part of the pair.
The brains and the brawn.
Kinda.
I mean, Timon, there is the I call it the Laurel and Hardy joke, where the quote dumb one comes up with the very smart idea and the quote smart one steals it.
Yeah.
Which is from the original movie as well. But, that's their dynamic. And, as Timon says in the movie, it's good to have someone to watch your back. And as he says, a big fat guy.
I think that when they get into the point of doing the well, if we just shift the camera a little bit to the right here, and then you'll see these two characters. Man, I love it when movies do that perspective shift. It's kind of one of my favorite tropes.
And it really starts with a recreation of the Circle of Life. You see the same sunrise from the beginning of Lion King 1, but now they've animated Timon and Pumbaa over it, walking toward Pride Rock, and every animal coming after them to meet baby Simba.
Yeah, and they get there because Rafiki tells Timon, look beyond what you see, and Timon looks out in the distance and goes like, hey, there's a weird shaped rock. Well, that must be the promised land I'm looking for. And him and Pumbaa just happen to arrive in time to see, baby Simba being held up.
Which makes a certain other commercial canon. I mentioned it, Lilo and Stitch, but the original Lilo and Stitch theatrical trailer features one for the Lion King. And of course, Rafiki is holding up Stitch. And you see the perspective go down to the animals, and you see Timon and Pumbaa. Wait, that's not Simba, which now makes this whole thing canon. They were there the whole time.
But I like the idea that the bowing at the end was actually animals passing out from Pumbaa breaking wind.
Yeah. Hey, the animals behind us are bowing. We should bow too.
Yeah.
Look how they bow. Look how they bow for the royal son, sire. I do like how for the next scene, Timon has green eyes, because he was
ground zero for that. Yeah.
Yeah. They quickly go through the events of The Lion King because they kind of have to, because this is a 80-minute movie. So events don't quite sync up, but because they kind of need to. Timon and Pumbaa end up getting this little oasis just off the side of Pride Rock to settle in. It's implied it's one night, but how long in movie years or movie months or movie weeks it's been since we go from newborn Simba to singing He Can't Wait to Be King.
Well, look up how long it takes a lion cub to get,
Yeah.
But the thing is that they're hanging around. They see Simba growing up, and they're like, ugh, this kid. Then they end up in the elephant graveyard, and they're like, yeah, who would come to an elephant graveyard? And they're like, oh, that's who.
I see carnivores.
Yeah.
Okay,
I love that line.
I gotta do this. That is the one I would say, if there's anything of this movie that doesn't age, is those pop culture references. This is an early 2000s movie. There are early 2000s references, but I don't think they're that bad.
Yeah, and what's so interesting about it is that even if you don't understand that that's like a Sixth Sense reference, it's still kind of a funny line,
Mm-hmm.
Because of just the way that Nathan Lane delivers that line. You don't have to get that it's a Sixth Sense reference because he is just scared of the hyenas and the way he says it and the inflection and
Yeah.
it's
Not to
still
mention,
a funny line.
then we get to it's another pop culture reference, but it's like, in terms of referencing the original movie, it's my favorite reference to the original movie. Is they end up in Scar's hideout trying to make that their new home, and he says, "Yeah, it's peaceful, it's quiet. No one will ever know we're here. Be prepared." The whole "be prepared" kicks up. The hyenas are marching, so the joke lands great. It's the pop culture reference afterward where they think they're the troupe from Riverdance, and Timon and Pumbaa river dance off screen. Again, not all the pop culture reference age well, but it's not that big a deal to me.
And once again, I'm not sure you need to understand that that's specifically a Riverdance reference. It's just funny that they're dancing off screen trying not to be seen. I think if you showed that to a little kid, they wouldn't have to understand, oh, that's Riverdance. They would just be like, haha, they're doing a funny dance, trying to get away from the hyenas.
Since this is a first watch for you, like, were you just waiting for Be Prepared to kick in, or were you waiting for some other reference?
I'm not sure I realized exactly where they were until the reveal.
Mhm.
So that hit me kind of, I kind of cackled at that when it hit, where they're like, yeah, nobody will find us here. They're like, be brave. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course that's where that was going to go.
Yeah, we go through all of the that entire young Simba event, even the wildebeest stampede where they go over a cliff and over a waterfall, and it's at this point that Pumbaa pauses the movie to go to the concession stand, and we get another thing, Disney referencing itself as we get Timon singing "It's a Small World" while the movie's on pause. I already knew this, but because we've mentioned this in the podcast before, but your roommate does not like "It's a Small World."
Yeah, he got trapped on It's a Small World once at Walt Disney World, and for over an hour at least, got stuck just sitting in the boat on It's a Small World, listening to that song on repeat for over an hour. And that's only like a minute and a half song tops
And hearing
before
it
it loops.
Yeah, in multiple languages and all that, yeah.
Yeah, and it just I don't know exactly how long he was trapped, but I know it was over an hour at minimum. And he just recently went back to Walt Disney World, and the person he went with, any time they were joking around and would have a disagreement about what to do next on their trip, his friend would say, like, oh, if you anger me, I'm making you go on It's a Small World, because it was the one ride he absolutely had forbidden for the trip. So anytime It's a Small World plays in our house, it's like, a triggering moment.
And there's Timon going, "It's a small world."
Yeah.
Everybody, it's a small world. But eventually they find their oasis from that first movie, where they find Hakuna Matata. They find their little oasis, their home. And they sing Hakuna Matata. And it's a sing-along. Follow the bouncing grub before Pumbaa eats it.
Yeah.
And yes, they have a full-on karaoke machine in the theater. Don't know how it got there. It's a cartoon. Don't question things.
Yeah, one of the funniest lines to me is we kind of skipped over, is when they do the scene where they find Simba after the wildebeest stampede, and Simba's kind of knocked out, And, Pumbaa picks him up with his tusks and everything. Timon has the thing of like, and now for the scariest part, parenthood.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long-running gag of Disney fans that, Simba was raised by two dads. And this movie kind of confirming it.
Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with that.
The fact that Timon saw this as parenthood, they just adopted a kid. In the Hakuna Matata song, we skip all through this. We skip the rest of Simba's childhood, his adolescence, and we come back to him as an adult. So for this movie to show us a little bit more of Simba growing up with Timon and Pumbaa as his parental figures, and Timon being a dad. I had a bad dream. I need a drink of water. I have to go bathroom. And, trying as children do, trying to make sure your kid doesn't, break his neck climbing trees and whatnot. Come down here, Simba. I'm going to count to 3.
And then Pumbaa's like, oh, that branch just broke. I need to protect Timon.
There's an entire scene with teenage Simba, voiced by Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, we do get more context for their life together before Nala shows up.
I do like how they kind of are very sarcastic to each other. That's their dynamic. What's the matter, Pops? The simple life is too much for you? Sonny boy, I invented Hakuna Matata. So I like this dynamic of, even if in a sarcastic way, Simba referring to Timon as Pop and Timon referring to Simba as son.
Yeah. The weirdest scene in this whole bit of like Simba growing up is the strange drinking contest that they worked in.
Shots, yeah!
Yeah, where they're like eating snails, but it's done like a drinking contest.
Because at this point, all of their previous records were broken by Simba, and Timon wants one record back. So it's a slug eating contest.
Well, no, they're snails. They're sucking the snail out of the shell, because that's the kind of, it's done like a drinking contest where you're doing shots, but they're doing it out of the shells of snails.
To the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly theme song. They licensed a lot of songs for this direct-to-video movie.
Yeah, that was also a weird thing to me, is that the soundtrack to this is very strange.
Like, you get the Good and the Bad and the Ugly theme, you get Jungle Boogie.
Yeah.
You get
Raven Simone does a cover song in the credits. Grazing in the Grass.
Lebo M does a full cover of The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Yeah.
Which he did release. He released an album around this time called Rhythms of the Pride Lands, which were his versions of various songs from The Lion King, including the original Warthog Rhapsody that was deleted from Lion King 1. So if you find Lebo M's album Rhythm of the Pride Lands, you can find that original song.
Yeah, Nathan Lane sings a bit of Sunrise Sunset.
Jewish
Speaking
coding.
of Jewish coding.
The most Jewish musical ever made, Fiddler on the Roof.
The Peter Gunn theme is in this as well.
During Can You Feel the Love Tonight?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a really weird mix of sampled, licensed songs in this. But yeah, I did not expect to have like Timon and teenage Simba having a quote unquote drinking contest. Even though it's not alcohol, they do animate it and treat it as if they are getting drunk. And I mean, it's a drinking contest.
Teenage Simba with the slime running down his face like it is a drink.
And Timon seems like absolutely wasted.
And so the student becomes the master, as Simba has broken every record of the Hakuna Matata Club. And they had, as Timon said, they had a very good life, and nothing could be better than the life of the three pals together. They do infer that they are friends, even though they have this pseudo fathers and son relationship. Everything is good until Nala shows up, and we're back to that part of the movie.
I do like that there is more background to the ending of Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Because in the movie, in the original movie, it gets to the end of Can You Feel the Love Tonight? And then there's the Timon and Pumbaa like tag on at the end of the song where it's like, and if he falls in love tonight, and, in short, our pal is doomed and all that, which kind of comes out of nowhere-ish, It's like, oh, here's this sweet love song, and then it pulls back, and then it's like, great, we're losing our pal, screw him for falling in love. But this goes back and gives it more context, because you see, like, during that entire sequence, Timon and a little bit Pumbaa, but Pumbaa's not really into it. He's just kind of being dragged along. But Timon is, like, constantly trying to do things to break them up, and it doesn't work,
We can't let them feel the love tonight.
Yeah. And he does things like try to drop a spider on him, but, like, the spider drops down and sees, like, a female spider and is like, and then, like, they weave, like, beautiful heart-shaped spider webs behind Simba and Nala, like, and Pumbaa's like, oh, that's so beautiful, like.
They end up falling because, as we see, Timon and Pumbaa trip them. The reason they fall after their little hug mock battle thing is, they have a vine, they trip Nala, they fall over, and the rest of that scene, and I'm not going to go into it. The famous bedroom eyes that Nala gives Simba.
And so, them, Timon trying to break them up might have, accelerated things.
And yes, they do reuse the audio of them singing their part from Can You Feel the Love Tonight. It is the same audio. And only now we see it from their point of view. Like, the camera is behind Timon and Pumbaa as they're singing that line. We're seeing Nala and Simba go off to whatever.
Ahem, because there might be little ones listening. So it gives a little more context to what they were going through when you see it in the context of, it's parents losing their little boy, it makes a little more sense, even though the song still says, in short, our pal is doomed,
And of course, he sees them fighting. Hey, it worked. We're going to keep our pal. You texted me after you saw this part. After the argument, we see Timon and Pumbaa start to follow Simba, and then clouds come in and form the shape of Mufasa. And Timon says, well, we better head back. There's a storm coming ahead.
No, the storm is coming to a head, which I think is a really, possibly the best joke in the entire movie. Because he says it just before you can tell Mufasa's head in the clouds. He says, the storm is coming to a head, and they turn around, and then that's when Mufasa's head forms in the clouds. It's really good timing on that joke, and I love it.
And then we skip to Nala explaining several times over. So they extend that scene here of her trying to explain what's going on with Simba. Which, again, considering what we know about Timon and Pumbaa, they probably do need it explained to them more than once. But I love this moment here where Timon gets fed up about the whole thing. He's like, we have this great life here of no worries, and he wants to run off and be a king. What happened to our lifestyle? He's ruining everything. What happened to friends stick together? Pumbaa is angry looking at Timon saying, I was about to tell you the same thing. You know the situation is bad when Pumbaa is angry. Because he's always this very joyful character, and when he loses it, he's mad at Timon for like, hey, our buddy, our son needs us. We have to help him, and you're sitting here angry at him for following, for lack of a better term, following his destiny. The hero's journey has called to him and all that.
But also, Timon is more worried about his life than that of his son. Douche move there, Timon.
But it does fit into what we've heard in the movie at this whole time. He wants a single life. He wants, he's lived in a colony his whole life. He doesn't like the idea of neighbors. He doesn't like, he even mentions, maybe we can live with some of the other animals here. And Timon says, yeah, living elbow to elbow with a lot of animals reminds me of home, and I don't want that. He likes the idea of it just being the three of them in this oasis, and then it's the two of them in the oasis, and then it's just him. It's like, I don't need anybody else. This is what I want. And is it, though? We see him trying to do the whole Hakuna Matata thing on his own, because, I don't need anybody. This is what I want. I'll do it all on my own. And it's not the same. So it's kind of a story of this character who wants individuality, who wants a little bit of freedom, but also learns to appreciate the value of community. Because he finds a true friend in Pumbaa, he finds a surrogate son in Simba, and when they go, even though he has the home of his dreams, it's not a home. He even says this later in the movie. He kind of wants his colony with him to give him this peace that he's found in the oasis. And of course, we get Rafiki there. Timon just does the entire thing by himself. Did you find Hakuna Matata? Yes, I did. Then why do you look miserable? Because I don't have my friends. I need to go find my friends. My work here is done.
I think that the first movie introduces the idea of Hakuna Matata, and I think that this movie elaborates on it in kind of a really nice way, which is that, yes, you do frequently kind of want to go with the flow. However, life is not really worth living without, some sort of community. Timon grew up in an environment he felt that he had no autonomy and no independence, but there has to be a balance in that. No meerkat is an island kind of thing. He has to learn that, you do need some form of autonomy. You do need to be able to make certain decisions for yourself, but also you can't get anywhere without the support of a community. And that's really what Timon has to learn. And I like that. I kind of like that that's the sort of underlying moral of this story.
They're off to help their boy. Smash cut to the luau scene.
Which is one of my favorite parts from the original film, as we talked about when we talked about the original film.
And then Timon is a bit embarrassed, but yeah, let's just skip this part. But he still wears the outfit for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. I want to talk about the confrontation with the hyenas when they come back.
Yeah.
Because there is something really hilarious to me in the confrontation with the hyenas. In the original movie, we never really see what happens between Timon and Pumbaa distracting the hyenas in the luau scene.
They call me Mr. Pig. That whole scene.
Yeah. And when the hyenas are at the bottom of Pride Rock and confront Scar.
And we find out what happened there. So, yeah. Timon's Ma and Max have caught up to Timon right after they chase off the hyenas in the luau scene. They agree to help them out. It's like, hey, Ma, I need you to dig a tunnel. Probably the biggest tunnel you've ever dug. Ma and Uncle Max are going to dig this tunnel underneath the hyenas. Timon and Pumbaa are going to distract them, and they're going to collapse the tunnel underneath them, which would take them out of the picture. Because after the Bowling for Hyenas scene, we see a scene that we did not see in the original film. The hyenas start chasing after Simba. Like, as Simba is chasing after Scar, the hyenas are chasing after Simba to protect Scar. This is where we pick up with that scene of them distracting the hyenas.
In order to distract the hyenas so that the rest of the meerkats can finish digging the tunnel because it's taking longer than they thought it would, Timon has a bit of a strange way of distracting the hyenas, which is to propose marriage to Shenzi.
And we get Shenzi's full name.
Yeah. Shenzi Marie Predatora Veldetta Jacquelina Hyena.
Of course it's Marie. It's always Marie. Go ahead.
I wonder how Timon learned her full name.
I think he just made it up.
I don't think he did, because she doesn't go like, where did you get that from?
And just the delivery of Whoopi Goldberg going, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, it distracts her long enough for the meerkats to finish their job, but she's not swayed by it.
She's shocked for a second, then she's like, no. The answer is no.
Yeah, I mean, it does the job it's meant to do, which is that it confuses her long enough for the meerkats to finish digging the tunnel. And that's how the hyenas end up at the bottom of Pride Rock at the point where Scar falls, is because they have just fallen down the tunnel and ended up at the bottom of Pride Rock. They were not there by chance. They were there because Timon's plan was to put them there. He just didn't realize that Scar was going to fall down there and get it.
And we get a reanimation of that final scene with that same score. It is time. But we get a part we did not see in the original movie either, where that hug, we see what Simba said to them. And he says, I couldn't have done this without you. Which is a nice thing. We actually see that moment. And, Timon makes that speech, I found my place, but it's not home. Come on, Ma, let's go home. Timon's entire colony now lives in the oasis at Hakuna Matata. We get a bit of a reprise of Digatana with praise the great Timon, he led us to the promised land. Which again, kind of goes to that Jewish coding. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a one-to-one perfect adaptation of it, but you can kind of see some inspirations of the story of Moses in here, especially since they do call it the Promised Land.
I mean, if you squint and turn your head sideways a little bit, I can see that.
And we get one more zoom out back into the theater where Pumbaa wants to watch the movie again. and in comes Ma and Uncle Max, and they want to watch the movie. And then we get Cameo City, which is why I think the theater is probably on the Disney lot, because the cameos we see in the theater, and I wrote this down. In the theater are Mickey Mouse, Snow White, all seven dwarves, Belle, Beast, Mrs. Potts, Chip, Lady and the Tramp, Aladdin, Jasmine, the Magic Carpet and the Genie, one of the hippos from Fantasia, Donald Duck, Goofy, the Mad Hatter. I thought it was the March Hare, but it's actually Rabbit from Winnie the Pooh, Stitch, Peter Pan, Tinkerbell, the Lost Boys, Pocahontas, Quasimodo and his gargoyles, Mowgli and Baloo, the fairies from Sleeping Beauty, Turk from Tarzan, Brer Bear, and Dumbo. And a lot of them have their voices. So, like, I guess they were already in the studio doing extra voices for the movie. Why not do your Disney character for the end of the movie?
I mean, it was a kind of a shock to me at the end of the movie where I was like, oh, okay, we're just having all the cameos. All right.
I mean, the first one to walk in the theater is the boss.
Yeah.
Though Mickey does not say a word here. And they decide, all right, we'll watch the movie again. Again, this is definitely one of the better direct-to-video Disney sequels, because it does offer that new perspective on the Lion King. We're seeing it from another perspective. The events that happened, it's, like you said, when a movie just does that, let's turn the camera to the side and see what's going on over there, and you get a new perspective of the movie. It's, it's like the first time we saw Avengers Endgame, and we saw all of those old movies now with a new perspective of the characters in a different location. Or like the first time you saw Back to the Future 2, and you saw those 1955 scenes from a different perspective. And, like I said earlier, when people are going to be seeing Wicked Part 2 next year, they're going to see the events of The Wizard of Oz from a different point of view. So I like when movies do that, especially in sequels, to show you, okay, this is what's happening just off screen. And again, this looked way too good to just be a direct-to-video movie. Again, they do a great job matching the original footage when they can. But yeah. So, Kiki, let's ask the question, does Lion King 1.5 have the magic?
I think so. It's a pretty cute little movie.
Definitely for me, this is definitely one of my favorites of the direct-to-video sequels. I already think this is the better prequel movie. Again, I'm not going to go see Mufasa. I'm sorry. If you're interested in seeing it, more power to you. I have no interest in seeing it. So this is going to be it for me. I'll take it. This is fine. Yeah, this is definitely up there for me on my favorites of the direct-to-video sequels. Definitely a gem among them. Yeah. So let's move on to next week. Kiki, do you know what time it is?
It's Howdy Doody time?
No, it's Turbo time. Next week is our Christmas episode, and we are going to be looking at the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Jingle All the Way.
It's that time when you make me watch a Christmas movie.
Yeah. But, again, it's one of the better ones, I think.
We shall see.
Plus, also, little Jake Lloyd before he was in Star Wars. We get to talk about that.
All right. That'll be interesting.
So come back next week for Jingle All the Way. And I think we should do a different outro this week. As they say in this movie, good night.
Sleep tight.
Dream of bedbugs tonight. Bye. Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky. rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available every Monday at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.